Hello chaps, welcome to John Robson Guitar Tuition once again. As always, I do hope you're well. Today we're taking a look at the rather fantastic solo from the Foo Fighters tune Long Road to Ruin, played by Chris Shiflett. We're going to take a look at all the obvious stuff, what notes are involved, what scales are being used, all that sort of usual solo analysis kind of stuff, but we're also going to take a look at the phrasing and just the general musical ideas that are going on and see what makes the whole thing work. So let's take a listen to it, shall we? Here it is. And as always with these solo analyses, the first place to start to get an understanding of what's going on is to take a look at the chord sequence. So here that is. Right, so what do we learn from that chord sequence then? Well, if we take a look at the chords, there's basically a C, an F, a G, albeit with a B bass note, an A minor, and a D major. Apart from that D major chord, the C, the F, the G and the A minor are all chords which occur naturally or are diatonic to the key of C major. The D chord is simply a borrowed chord from the related key of G major, and if you're wondering what related keys are all about, well, here's a very quick way of figuring that out. Just do your kind of 3-chord trick on bar chords, which I'm sure you're familiar with this kind of thing, you know. I'm sure we've all played Wild Thing or something like that. That sort of thing. And along with the C chord, you have the F chord and the G chord. Well, the key of F and the key of G are the two most closely related keys to the key of C, and if you're writing something in the key of C, you can borrow chords from the key of F or the key of G, and that's what's happened here. We've borrowed the D chord from the key of G major. Now, even though this chord sequence begins and ends on an F chord, you'll notice that when it ends on that F chord, it sounds kind of like it's still kind of hanging in mid-air. It isn't quite resolved. You know, if we have that final pass through the chord sequence where you're going F, C, to the G over B, A minor, D, F, it needs to go back to that C chord in order to sound resolved, and that is what we call the tonality of the chord sequence. It's the chord which makes it sound resolved at rest, like you've arrived home basically, and that is the chord which governs your choice of pentatonic scale. So because C major here is the chord which makes it all sound resolved, that is the tonality chord, then the choice of pentatonic scale is the C major pentatonic scale, and that is largely what the solo is based around. We've got this shape for the pentatonic scale, for the C major pentatonic, which plays a large part in proceedings, albeit only the bottom half of it. And this, which is most often referred to as position number 4 of the pentatonic scale, which starts on the open E string. And apart from one or two incidental notes that crop up every now and again, the vast majority of the note choices in the solo are based around those two shapes. So let's start taking a look at the licks. Okay, this first lick begins over an F chord, and we start by hammering on from the open third string to the second fret. Those two notes there, a G to an A. The A note is actually in the F chord, and then we conclude this first half of the first lick with this G note here. Now that G note isn't in the F chord. It's still a right note, but it's not a particularly strong chord note. It sounds somewhat unresolved. But the reason why that's a good choice here is because we've got a question and answer kind of thing going on. How many times have we seen that in these solo analyses? And by leaving the question part of the phrase unresolved, kind of hanging in mid-air a little bit, it makes the answer part of the phrase work even better. And the answer part of the phrase goes like this. And that concludes on the G note over the C chord, which we've arrived at by now. So the pair of those two licks together, like that. Very, very obvious question and answer phrasing. And as I say, by finishing the question part of that question and answer phrase on an unresolved note, it makes the resolution sound all the sweeter when you get to it on the answer part of the phrase. Lick 2 is pretty much the same sort of thing. There's a little bit of a difference in the phrasing. Here it is anyway. Right then, as I said, pretty much the same thing as lick number 1. The only real difference is the lack of a twiddly bit in lick number 2. What I mean is there's a section in lick 1 where it goes like that, and what we do in lick number 2 is go like that. So it's, you know, just that little bit less twiddly. The idea that when you're improvising a solo that you constantly have to be thinking of new things to play and coming up with new licks all the time is a bit of a myth, really. As we can see here, using a bit of repetition, playing the same lick more than once, is a great way of establishing a theme, a melody, if you like, in the listener's ear, and it actually draws them in. You will usually get away with doing at least 3 repetitions, and he's only doing 2 here. So, you know, if you played a lick that sounds cool, don't be afraid to play it again, and it will sound all the stronger for it. So that's lick number 2. Let's have a look at lick number 3. Okay, this one is that point in the solo where there are 6 licks, I would say, in this solo, so this one kind of marks the halfway point. And it's here where we start to build up a little bit of tension, and we do that, or he does that, with the use of a little bit of speed. And this is a lick that actually sounds trickier than it is. Remember that position number 4 pentatonic that we looked at? That thing there? Well, this lick is pretty much entirely based around that, and it's just a little hammer on, pull off kind of thing that goes like this. You can see the tab in the corner of the screen, and here it is, nice and slowly. There we go. So in order to get that up to speed, because it is you know, a really cool little lick to play at speed, you have to know how to count it. And basically these notes in this main descending part of the lick are played as semiquavers, or some people would say 16th notes, which basically means that you count it 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and so 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and like that, and make sure you've got a metronome going, ticking away nice and slowly, and just aim the first note in each beat, that part that lands on the number, right on the metronome click, and just gradually inch the speed up a little bit at a time. And once you've got that, try applying it to your other pentatonic shapes. You know, there are 5 different pentatonic shapes. There's a lick that you can easily migrate to other pentatonic patterns that you may know. Right, so that is lick number 3. Let's move on to lick number 4. Right then, I think the best way to view what's going on with this lick is to think of it as kind of the answer to the previous one. Again, we've sort of got this question and answer thing going on here. The previous lick, which was all this kind of hammer on, pull off stuff, you know, whatever, all of that is there, as I said at the time, to build up a little bit of tension. Well, every tension needs to be resolved, and that's what this lick is all about. Cast your mind back to the first lick in the solo once again, you know, this thing, where the question part of it finishes on an unresolved non-chord note. It's still, you know, part of the scale, so it's not a wrong note, but it's just not a particularly strong one either. That's the question, and then the answer part finishes on a resolved strong note from the chord. Well, that's the way we built up tension in lick number 1 on the question part, is by note choice. Lick 3, what's happened is that we've built up the tension in a different way by using a bit of a speedy descending run. But the tension needs to be resolved, and what he does here is basically plays that. And you can hear just in that lick itself, it sounds resolved on that little double stop note there. Why? Because it's 2 of the notes from the underlying C major chord. And yeah, that's basically lick number 4, working as kind of an answer to the question which is posed in lick number 3. Okay, here's number 5. Right then, lick number 5, what's going on here? Well, you may have seen, or you may not have seen, the video I did about the Eric Clapton solo from Roger Waters' tune The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. If you've seen it, then you might recall the concept that was going right the way through that, where Clapton wasn't just playing question, answer, he was playing question, answer, kind of doubling up on the answer part of the phrase, almost like kind of saying, and another thing, you know, really kind of forcefully making the point. And that's kind of what's happening with lick number 5 here. It's still part of that question and answer format that began on lick number 3, this cycle of it anyway. Basically it goes like this. And he leaves a significant gap after that final note there of nearly an entire bar, which is kind of, it's like a full stop, a period at the end of a sentence. So that's very definitely part of that same cluster of licks that began with lick number 3. Yeah, it's just like another answer. It's kind of, as I say, going and one more thing just to ram the point home, and once again finishing on a C note, which is a very strong note from the underlying chord. Right, we're now going to look at the big finish, the final lick, lick number 6. And this has a rather clever little device up its sleeve, which we'll talk about in a moment. Okay then, lick number 6, the big finish. There are, I think, 3 things that make this the perfect lick to conclude the solo on, and we're going to talk about them right now. The first one is that it's back to playing up at a little bit of speed. Okay, the last time we had anything that was a bit twiddly and a bit fast was on lick number 3, where we had that 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a kind of semi-quaver count. Well, we're back to counting in semi-quavers once again here. So saving a little bit of speed for right in the final lick of the solo is often a good ploy. It's a good way of building up to a climax. The other thing that makes this a great ending lick is you'll notice that the note that he finishes on is the lowest note in the solo. It's a very, very strong chord note. It's the F note, which is the root note of the F chord that the solo concludes on. You don't get much stronger resolution note than the actual root. And you know, it's the, as I say, it's the lowest note in the solo. Save the lowest note or the highest note if you want for last. There are plenty of great guitar solos where, you know, you work your way up to this end of the neck and finish on a big blazing finale up on a strong chord note right up the top end of the neck or right down the bottom end of the neck. It gives a very definite sense of, you know, either rolling down the hill and coming to a stop, or, you know, kind of standing on top of the hill and kind of making a proclamation, if you like, if you're doing it the opposite way around at the top end of the neck. So save either the lowest or the highest, in this case the lowest note, for the end of the solo. And the final little thing which makes this lick work, and you can use this anywhere really, it doesn't have to be as an ending lick, is a little trick called rhythmic displacement. Basically what he's doing is playing this little repetitive figure. Okay, and that lasts for 1.5 beats. So when you play it to begin with, you'll notice in this graphic here, it starts on the 1 and then finishes halfway through beat 2. So when you repeat it again, it's now starting halfway through a beat rather than starting on the beat. And then in this graphic, you can see that when it happens for the third time, it's happening on the beat again, and then the fourth time it's happening off the beat. So this kind of on the beat, off the beat repetition, which is caused by the lick being, you know, kind of a beat and a half long, is what gives it that sort of displaced feel. And it means that every time the listener hears that lick coming back around again, that little rhythmic figure, that it sounds ever so slightly different to the previous one, because it's in a different place with relation to where the regular kind of metronomic beat of the music is. And anyway, here's what it all sounds like, all demonstrated at a nice slow speed with a count going on in the background. Hopefully you'll see what I mean. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... So there you go, that is lick number 6, the lick which concludes the solo. Now then, I hope you found this informative and useful. It's a very, I think, effective solo, short but sweet. There's not a lot going on there, but, well, there's a lot going on, but there's not a lot of licks is what I'm trying to say. So what have we learned? Well, we've looked at the question and answer thing, which we've seen in so many solos here. We've looked at building tension, either by using speed or by playing an unresolved chord note as part of the question. We've looked at the not just the question and answer format, but the question answer answer, where you kind of ram the point home with you know, doubling up on the answer part of the phrase. And we've looked at rhythmic displacement and saving the final or the lowest or highest note for the very last note in the solo. Again, a very good way of making things sound like they're coming to a conclusion. As I say, I hope you found this useful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. There is a full tab in either PDF or Guitar Pro format in the description box below this video, so, you know, if you fancy having a go at it, grab the tab and knock yourself out. And while I've got you, let me just once again give a plug to the charity campaign I'm running. This guitar here, this Harley Benton SC1000, basically a copy of an ESP Eclipse. This is for sale, okay? You can buy this guitar. I'll put a link to the review I did of this guitar in the description box as well, and you can see what's going on with that guitar and how to bid on it. Basically, any money that that guitar raises will be going to Zoe's Place Baby Hospice, which is a charity in Middlesbrough which provides palliative, respite and end-of-life care for children under 5 with terminal illnesses. A fantastically worthy cause, and, you know, any money that you spend on that guitar you will be going to that cause. And whilst we're talking about this charity campaign, there's also this guitar which is for sale. Okay, this is one of the Harley Benton Fusion Pro guitars. Again, there's a link to the review I did of that guitar in the description box below. Get your bids in for that. You've got until October the 31st, Halloween, to bid on this guitar, and you've got until I think it's Monday the 12th of November to bid on this guitar. And once again, all proceeds from the sale of these guitars goes to Zoe's Place Baby Hospice. If you are the winning bidder on this guitar, on either of these guitars, what you do, well, first of all, in order to submit a bid, just email me via the email address you can see on screen or at the end of the video. Email me how much you'd like to bid on either of the guitars, and then on the specified due date, I will email you to let you know that you are the winning bidder, if you are the winning bidder. And then what you do is you make the donation to Zoe's Place via a link that I will send you, and then provide me with confirmation, like a screenshot of the receipt or whatever, and then I send you the guitar. If you're outside the UK, please contact me before bidding, because shipping guitars internationally can get a little bit expensive, and we may need to have a conversation about shipping costs. But if you're in the UK, you'll get the guitar without any shipping fees whatsoever. I'll cover those. And yeah, let's raise a bit of money for this very, very worthy charity, shall we? And before I go, just the usual plug for my guitar tuition. If you would like some tailored one-to-one guitar lessons, then get in touch with me once again via the details at the end of this video. If you live on Teesside in the northeast of England, you can come along for a face-to-face lesson, or wherever you are in the world, you can have a lesson via Skype, and whichever way you do it, your first lesson is free, so you got nothing at all to lose. Why not give it a go? And with that, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time around. Bye for now, folks.